only break it out on St. Patty's Day because I'm not, this color is fine, but I'm really not that fond of it. And they kind of don't look alike. But I do like the hat. Anyway, want to talk today, not about Star Wars, even though the hotel is sinking $20,000 to stay 2 nights. 20,000. That was a kind of a surprise. Anyway, it's St. Patrick's Day, so we're going to talk about Irish culture in America and the gifts they brought with them. We're going to talk about Irish actors. We're going to talk about, I bet you didn't know the Duke was an Irish actor, Marion Morrison. We're going to talk about novelists, and we're going to talk about Irish history. But let's first talk about, I'm going to take this off. I'll wear it again. I'll put it back on. First I want to talk about a little bit about Irish history. And this is, for some of you guys who aren't Catholic, just, you're going to, whatever. Back in the Dark Ages, all right, first off, I'm going to preface this with, there's a book called How the Irish Saved Civilization. I suggest you read it. There are also more Irish people here in the United States than there are in Ireland. Bet you didn't know that either. Now, millions, thanks James, millions and millions and millions came over around the, the mid 1800s and later because of what they call the potato famine. And historians blame the British for that, starving the Irish population. But Irish history is a little bit, hey Sci-Fi Universe, Irish history is a little bit more, I think, complicated. We first really kind of get to know who they are when the Vikings raided Lindisfarne, which is a seaside village in Ireland, and the first Viking raiders into the British Isles showed up and killed people, took slaves, trashed the church there, and basically made a mess of everything. And that's the first time we really kind of noticed the Irish. But during the Dark Ages, after the Vikings, the Irish basically saved as much of the learning stuff. The Book of Kells is there, which is a Bible, and a lot of other pieces of knowledge that would have been lost. Irish monks were all over Europe, writing and copying down things, basically preserving civilization, okay? And while that's going on, they're having trouble with the English. Go a little further ahead, get into the reign of Elizabeth I. There were fights going back and forth between the Irish and her and the British Army, English Army. Then we get into Oliver Cromwell, who basically forbade Irish being spoken. He basically tried to commit genocide, cultural genocide. You are not allowed to speak your language. The Irish have had a very tough time dealing with their close neighbors, the English. And I've been to Ireland. I've Sláinte, my friend. Not drinking yet though. You will never get a better dissertation on the history of Ireland than from an Irish cabbie. All right. And that's the truth. But I've seen the Book of Kells. I've been to Trinity University there. You walk everywhere in Dublin. Been to Waterford, stayed at the castle. A little story about Dingle. First off, let's talk about the Irish, the Irish War for Independence. About the late 1916, there was an uprising, and a bunch of the leaders were captured by the British Army. This is during World War I, by the way. Um, Michael Collins was one of them. Eamon de Valera was the other. And Eamon de Valera wasn't executed, but a bunch of them were. If you want to watch a good movie, and I can't stand Julia Roberts in the role of, I think you're right, Sci-Fi Universes. I can't stand Julia Roberts in the role of Michael Collins' girlfriend. She's just, her accent was terrible, okay? But when De Valera, basically they helped De Valera escape from prison. He's dressed as a woman, Michael Collins and one of his friends. They get him to America, they get him on a boat, get him to America, and then they start raising hell with the British. If you remember the Black and Tans. Oh, hey, Jeff. Remember the Black and Tans? You know what it's not a beer. Was a unit, I think, of British soldiers, or maybe they were Irish auxiliary, that basically just raised hell in Dublin and elsewhere, culminating in a massacre on a soccer field. Okay. And basically, the British were trying to rule with an iron fist. They were getting really sick of this, as you can imagine. And Michael Collins, with the help of insiders, figured out who all the leaders were, the British leaders, and assassinated, I think, every one of them. At least that's what the movie says. I read his Tim Pat Coogan's biography of him, and I can't remember if that was true or not. But they show it in the movie. So the British say, no mas, no more. They send Michael Collins against his will to negotiate with the British. And what they come up with was a partition between Northern Ireland, which is where the British back in the day, like I think during Cromwell's time, started settling Protestants in Belfast. And really wreaked havoc on the native Catholic population. It is a religious war. Okay, it is not you're Scottish and you're a bigot because, you know what I'm saying, you're Scottish and you're invading. No, it was a war against Irish Catholics. And that's where, to this, at least until the 1990s, where you see the bombing of at Omagh. Okay, you have a lot of that stuff going on still. And Eamon de Valera came back. He was pissed off. They wanted all of Ireland united. Michael Collins knew that that would never happen, at least not in their lifetime. All hell broke out, and I think in 1921, later, Michael Collins was assassinated by Eamon de Valera's people. It was the Irish Civil War. And the Irish Republic, as we know it, exists. But it's a sad history. I mean, if you want to read a good biography or autobiography, Johnny Rotten, John Lydon, the lead singer of the Sex Pistols, Public Image Limited, he talks a lot about his Irish relations and how poor they were. Even in the 1950s, 60s, all right, these are not well-to-do people, okay? And so here's a story I want to tell you. When we went to Ireland, we flew into Cork, and then we drove to Dingle, which is a little seaside town on the southwest coast of Ireland. We get to our hotel, and we walked around the town. It's a tourist trap, but it's also not. It's very well known for its seafood. Walked in to a bar, a local bar, where the fishermen hung out. And it was really weird because we're getting stink eye from the locals. I was like, well, why? We're just here for a beer. You can just feel when you're really not wanted. And all of a sudden I looked up, and I'm sitting here. and the bar's about 30 feet away, right here. I look down at the bar at the end. You know, you have the opening so the bartender can go back and forth. And there's a picture of Eamon de Valera. Okay. You look down at the other end where the entrance is. And facing that picture is a picture of Michael Collins. And when I looked at that and I realized, oh shit, this was probably IRA Central back in the day. So I looked at my sisters and said, finish our beer, let's get the hell out of here. They're like, why? I mean, let's put it this way. These three are about as witless. We're about as witless as they come. My sister Rose wasn't there. But Mary, Chris, and Joan are witless. They have absolutely no instincts whatsoever and don't know anything about history. Okay. I go, we're basically at a local bar, and it was probably back in the day, because it's an old bar, old bar. The headquarters of the IRA, okay? These people do not want us here. And I said, look at these pictures. Do you know who they are? We're talking about Ireland right now, sci-fi universes. Do you know? That's Eamon de Valera. That's Michael Collins. And in the early 1920s, they went from being allies and friends to deadly enemies over the Irish Civil War. So I think we need to leave now. And because the Irish, don't forget, they're worse than the Italians. They're worse than the Italians. Okay. So, but I loved it. Waterford Castle is great. I was sitting there drinking a gin and tonic, and a red fox comes running across the lawn and sits by me. I'm like, oh, hello there. He was very cute. I named him Richard R. Fox. And then we went to Dublin and toured all over the place and walked around and went into the cathedral, and it was just, the people are great. The food is exceptional. The history is magnificent. I've got a volume of all of William Butler Yeats' poetry. He's my favorite poet laureate of Ireland. But let's talk about how the Irish affected American culture. America itself is an idea. It is not, it has become a culture, but it wasn't an idea. The people who came here decided that it was going to be their idea. People from all over the world. We've got organizations called the Sons of Norway thank you, White Phoenix, to preserve Norwegian culture. My mom was a member. We've got Italian-American organizations. You know, in my hometown, there's an Oktoberfest. It's the biggest Oktoberfest in the Midwest. It's not like Munich. I've been there. But I've been to Munich. I've seen that. It's unbelievable. But our Oktoberfest is amazing. And it's a lot of fun. It really is. I mean, you spend most of the time drunk off your ass, but, you know, they're Polish groups, and everybody, and of course the Italian-American groups, like I mentioned, and like they're the Sons of Scotland, I think, to preserve Scottish culture. Everybody who's got ties back in some form or another to Europe has a group that can belong to. Okay, and the Irish are no different. But what the Irish brought to the United States, I think, was a sense of wanderlust, was a sense of hard work, play hard, fight hard, drink hard. But they're dramatic people. Happy St. Patty's Day. Oh, yay. Tullamore County, huh? Here you go. I'm not drinking yet. It's not 5 o'clock. And when I do, I'm opening up a can. I'm going to open up a can of Murphy's, and I haven't had Murphy's since I was in Ireland with my sisters, and that was in 98, 97. And it'll remind me of that old bar. Maze. Oh, Mexican Iron Man, how you doing? Um, so anyway, here's my hat if you guys haven't seen it yet. Actually, I saw an even cooler one at Wegmans. It was a cigarette hat. And I should have bought that. It was only $4. But what do you think? Does it work or is it too big? Anyway, um, but you know, when you look at our culture and you look at the people involved in our history, we see names, Irish names. Um, in our culture, we see Irish names. John Ford, the great director, the greatest director that ever lived. All right. They say Spielberg is a very diverse director, but John Ford was, oh yeah, that is. John Ford was a very um, new one. I mean, he could direct anything, right? Comedies, drama, war movies, and he started out in movies in the 19 teens, and his name was actually John Martin Feeney, and he made the Western not just a something that you would read out of a dime novel. He made the Western the go-to American story. And the reason why he's so important is because he gave the cowboy, the man of the West, the American alpha male, a face, a reason, a story. And he knew Wyatt Earp. He started out as a stunt man. Oh, that's cool, Jeff. He started out as a stunt man. Ended up being a director, and you know he's a legend. I mean, he is the one director that Spielberg and Lucas and all of them looked up to because he was able to make things big. There's a scene he filmed. Ooh, look at that! I flashed you guys. Stop unbuttoning. Um, there's a scene in a movie with Gregory Peck. It's in Monument Valley. That was his stage, Monument Valley. And you got Gregory Peck and a guy fighting. And they're like that big in this huge vista. That is how big the land is. When you go out and look at Montana, Wyoming, Arizona, New Mexico, even the parts of California that aren't that inhabited, Nevada, Utah, it's huge. This is what makes the American Western so great. It's these bigger than life men came west and their stories are being told or were being told in movies by a guy who knew them, by a guy who offered the Irish ability to tell stories, and he made them real for people. Okay, so John Martin Feeney, John Ford, he discovered a young actor named Marion Morrison. Marion Morrison had done some movies early in the late 20s. He was a young football player and started out as like a stagehand, and then moved to just basically to a bit player. And John Ford discovered him, gave him a part in Stagecoach. We know this actor is John Wayne. Larger than life, greatest movie star of all time, John Wayne. Okay. No one projected American culture the way John Wayne did. No one. I mean, during Vietnam, you'd hear people call him Mr. Vietnamese people call him Mr. America. Okay. But he was Irish. You know, the Irish are talented, have the talent of being actors, storytellers, singers, whatever. But there's another person who, Irish descent, who was larger than life, who helped mold American culture. And let's go to another actor. My favorite. Harrison Ford. Father's obviously Irish. Mother was not. Mother was Jewish. That would have been a lot of fun on holidays. Um, so he doesn't have a middle name because Jewish religion and culture doesn't do that. I did not know that, but think about the world without with Harrison Ford not playing Han Solo. Okay, think about that. Think about it. It's think about the world without him. Indiana Jones. You know, think he. I mean that is a gift from the Emerald Isle right there. Mark Hamill is Irish. Okay, I can go down a thousand different names, but these are just some of the people that I look at as being part of what made Ireland, or Ireland gave the United States. Um, then, all right, let's go to novelists. My favorite novelist in the whole world, I met him. I met him about 3 months before he announced he had. No, I don't think he was. Um, uh, but the Fighting Sullivans, all those boys that got killed on that ship. Um, oh, that's cool. That's cool. But Vince Flynn, who created the Mitch Rapp series. If you're into thrillers, if you're into just badass American CIA ass kicker, read Vince's books. His first book was called Term Limits. Book you'll never see as a movie because it'll give people ideas. Um, and he wrote it while he was bartending. He would just, when there was no one in the bar, he'd just write furiously on a yellow pad. And he is self-published. And when he borrowed $20,000 from some friends, published the book in Minneapolis, St. Paul, where he's from, which is a huge Irish Catholic population. And within 2 weeks, Simon and Schuster, who had basically told him, go pound sand, were like, oh, we want to publish you. We want you to come over to Simon and Schuster. But Vince was 6'3", a big, big guy. Larger than life, the sweetest guy you'd ever want to. Yes, he was. Sweetest guy you'd ever want to meet. And having lost him has really hurt, I think, the thriller community. He was only 47. And he had prostate cancer and didn't notice anything was wrong until his hip started hurting. And he thought it was an old football injury. Well, there you go. Okay. And it was heartbreaking. It was truly, truly heartbreaking to lose him. But hey, you know what? And of course we got Tom Clancy. Patriot Games, Harrison Ford was in it. Very, very full of Irish, the drama of the IRA, etc., etc. And you get Richard Harris, who's Irish in the movie, which is great. But these guys are very, very important to the American culture. Now, talk about music. The Pogs, Flogging Molly, Dropkick Murphys. I talked about John Lydon, Irish immigrant to London, who basically started, was the founding member of the Sex Pistols, and he's Irish. And hey, Sinna Dave, and it's very, very interesting to me seeing how. Yeah, well, he used to be my old boss there, Sci-Fi Universe. Um, you know, these are all things that we kind of look at the Irish and say, thank you for these guys, thank you for these people. Um, Not a lot of women here because I didn't really do any research into Irish women, but you know, when you look at all these people and you look at uh, who they were and what they gave to our communities, it is unbelievable. Um, Around here where I live, uh, the Irish did a lot to prop up the Catholic Church. This is there are a lot of Mennonites and Methodist churches everywhere. I mean, the church next door, Clarion, the place Clarion is Methodist. And one of my favorite things is when you hear Salve Regina or another Catholic hymn. Like, it's Lent now, so if they play a 10-Day Domine, I'm going to start laughing. Um, you know, but Jeff, he's still kicking. Um, Anyway, it's just a lot of it is just really fun to just kick back and talk about it. Um, and my husband's half Irish. His father's Irish and either Polish or Austrian of some. Yes, he is, Jeff, of some kind. I just talked to him yesterday. Um, of some kind. And it's just, I mean, the things we have. Hey, Latino Slant. I hope I didn't step on your toes, but I had to do this before. I am cooking corned beef. No, it's not Irish. It is something that the Irish learned from their Jewish neighbors when they moved to New York. Because that cut of beef is cheaper. You can feed a lot of people off it. And they learned it from them. So it's basically an Irish American meal. And no, I don't think you'd want to run. An Irish American meal that actually has Jewish roots, but again, it shows the melting pot of the United States. One of my, much as I love my Italian friends, my mother-in-law, my husband, people from Italy have a hard time with American Italian food. There's too much garlic. You're not doing it right. Blah, blah, blah. And there's one guy here on YouTube who comments on other people's videos like he does his own like critique and freaks out. What they don't understand, and I use the Irish and the corned beef to prove a point. And the point is that when people came to America, it wasn't that they were going to lose their culture, but they are going to basically learn other things and expand everybody's culture that way. The reason why there's more garlic in American Italian foods probably because, that's what other cultures were doing. I mean, Hungarians, Ukrainians, Russians, Germans, Austrians, Poles, Slavs, Czechs, Norwegians, Swedes, Danes, then you get in the Southwest with Mexican culture coming up, and what's really interesting is Italian food and Mexican food kind of can run simultaneously. But man, oh man, if you get someone actually from Italy, Calabria, Abruzzi, Tuscany, and they see that collaboration, fusion, they freak out. They really, really do. They don't understand that is no longer Italian cuisine anymore. It's a cuisine that is completely separate because it's combining other elements from other cuisines. They have a freak out. They really, really do. The Irish don't care. You go to Ireland right now, and you can eat bangers and mash, which is British. Shepherd's pie, which is not Irish. you know, cold cannon is Irish. It is mashed potatoes with green onions and cabbage, and I was gonna make it today, but I decided I didn't want to have to go through all the work, so I'm not. In a few minutes, I'm probably just gonna get out. I got a huge head of cabbage, chop that up, put it in the thing. Yeah, they did. They built the railroads. You know, they were the first actual. They came over as indentured servants. All right, they had to buy their freedom when that first happened. When American uh, colonists started coming. Andrew Jackson was Irish. Okay, um, he was not Catholic Irish, obviously, but he was Irish. From family came from northern the Protestant part of Ireland. Um, you know, but you go through all that, you see it. I mean, Gone with the Wind, Margaret Mitchell, Scarlett O'Hara. Okay, all right. You got the movie The Devil's Own, which I just watched again. Uh, you know, you've got an American Irish judge in New York who brings over this young terrorist played by Brad Pitt, who could do an Irish accent if I mean, he didn't do a very good job. Did the best he could, but he's not good with that stuff. And he comes over and they board him with an American Irish New York police sergeant played by Harrison Ford, Tom O'Mara, and that whole thing spirals down real fast. Kid wants to get missiles to, I don't know, shoot down British Army helicopters, or maybe shoot down the Queen when she's flying in and out of whatever. And it's a sad. The movie opens sad. Again, I've talked about how the nation of Ireland is the history is sad. Okay, but the British Isles themselves are not exactly happy places when you look at the history. I mean, the history of England itself is you know, is a bloody mess, and the way they treated the Irish. I mean, again, go back to immediately after the uprising and the Black and Tan showed up, there were massacres and everything, and the Irish fought back, and you know, brought. I mean, Michael Collins brought, you know, Winston Churchill of all people to a standstill. Okay, very interesting, but sad history, but they're proud of it. They're proud of it. They were, you know, they're not. They're the ones that everybody else can stand on, if you know what I mean. They're the fighters. They're the brawlers. They're the ones that go and explore, you know, like the Old West. A lot of those guys had ties back to Ireland. All right, a lot of those gunfighters, a lot of the explorer, you know what I'm saying, the people that were on the edge of the empire. And what they contributed to our history and our culture can't be quantified. The Kennedys, think about it, you know, and they were looked down on. I mean, Margaret Sanger, Miss Planned Parenthood, hated the Irish. Too many kids. She considered them cockroaches. All right, she's a horrible racist, hated Catholics, looked down on us as, you know, basically being human weeds. All right, but you know, they still flourished. Again, there are more Irish people, I think, in New York City than there are in all of Ireland. All right, kind of get your eyes open, doesn't it? There are more Jews in New York City than there are in Israel. Not kidding. Okay. And what's really weird is that you wouldn't think that they would all get along. But for some reason, the Irish and the Jews kind of, you know, and okay. Then we've got, let's talk about the Irish Mafia. Okay, bad dudes. Bad dudes. Whitey Bulger. You go to Chicago, and um, Al Capone's biggest rivals were the Irish, which was the Irish gang there. And St. Valentine's Day Massacre, that's who Capone killed. Okay, uh, the Bannon gang, very, very, very violent. Not as I look at the Italian mafia as being a little more corporate. The Irish were not. They really weren't. Here's a little story about John Gotti. The Irish mafia, Irish gang in New York City, did a stupid thing. They kidnapped and murdered the nephew of the Don of New York, the boss of all bosses, Carlo Gambino. It was given to John Gotti and his guys, his crew, to find the guys who did it and get rid of them. And Gotti spent a few years in prison for that, because one of the guys he had to take along was stoked out on coke and didn't wait. They were going to go in, pretend they were cops, grab the guy, haul him out, take him out, somewhere to a junkyard somewhere, and let him have it, and then leave him in the back of the trunk, which is their MO. But the guy shot him in front of a bunch of people, okay? And big mistake. Gotti got kind of bitch slapped for it, but when you look at what happened, they made a big mistake sending that guy with them. That never happened again. Well, the Russian mafia is more like a bunch of thugs, kind of like the Irish mob. I mean, Bannon was a thug. These guys that went after Gambino's nephew were thugs. If you listen to Michael Franzese, I'm going to get off here in a second, by the way. His time as he was a capo in the Colombo crime family, very, very corporate, very, very business oriented. He was really mafia, all right? He wasn't a thug. He was, mafia, okay? He was a racketeer. Sammy the Bullet Gravano was both. He was a thug, he was a mobster, and he was a racketeer. So you can be both, but there's a certain style that that Italian mafia had, and I think probably has to this day. I mean, think about it. You see people like Frank Sinatra hanging out with Vasily the snake? No. I mean, no. Italian mob tried to get into Hollywood, or the Italian mob was actually in Hollywood. The Russian mob tried, and they actually did go pretty far, but I don't think they're there anymore. It's one of those things where the Holly weirdos have causes that they are all excited about, and then the causes they get bored and they go to the next one. Tibet. Then they were hanging out with the Russian mob. So you got a bunch of pro-Russian movies like Stalingrad and Air Force One and all the rest of that. And it's like, now they all hate the Russians, all right? But anyway, this is about the Italian, or Irish, the Irish, and while I am not Irish, I absolutely love that culture. I love them. I really love the fact that they've contributed so much for millennia to our Western heritage. Um, they're hilarious. What I'm gonna tell you guys today is go find some Irish punk rock, like the Pogs, Flogging Molly, Dropkick Murphys, or whomever, and sit down and listen. It's good stuff. It really, really is. Uh, I absolutely love it. Um, when we were, uh, when I lived in D.C. on uh, down in Old Town Alexandria, there's a bar called Murphy's. And actually, Murphy's, I don't think it was Pat Troy's. Oh yeah, um, Murphy's, I think, was the bar Harrison Ford confronts Richard Harris in Patriot Games. It could have been Pat Troy's. I've been to both. Pat Troy's is closed now, sadly. Um, but I would go in there after work, leave Capitol Hill, and meet my friends there for happy hour. And they'd have a band. That was the band that was playing, Double Down. And they play uh, Wild Colonial Boy for Me, which is my favorite Irish folk song. And it's about an Australian outlaw. And it's great. It's fantastic. But they were fun. We would dance and I'd make an ass of myself trying to dance because I can't dance. But you get a couple of pints in you and you pretty much think you're a rock star. But anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about Ireland. There's some, like I said, I'll give you some movies: Patriot Games, The Devil's Own, The Quiet Man. I've got The Fugitive on in the background. That is an Irish St. Patrick's Day movie. I don't care what anyone says. Michael Collins is a good movie, but there are tons of them. And In the Name of the Father, which is I think Daniel Day-Lewis film. It's just it's a lot of fun to just see what they're the stories are great. Other Irish actors: Ward Bond. It was a John Wayne movie, and John Ford directed it. Ward Bond was in it. He played the pastor of the Catholic Church in The Quiet Man. All right. He was literally, he was in, he played the cop in It's a Wonderful Life. Big character actor. Actually a good looking man too, in my opinion. Jimmy Cagney, Irish. Ronald Reagan, Irish. There are tons of names. And it's a good day to remember them. All right? It's a good day to remember them. And as far as, American culture goes, we have a melting pot. You've got, inventors like Bell and others. You've got people like Steve Jobs. He was Syrian. He was half Syrian. I think Syrian, Middle Eastern. And, when I think about that, I think every ethnic group, because I don't look at color, ethnic groups. I don't see color. I don't want to hear about it. Everybody's contributed a lot. And there are people out there that just don't see it. They just don't see it. As far as preserving individual ethnic cultures, Wild Sons of Norway. You've got tons of different Italian American groups. You've got, I think they're probably Greek American groups. You go on and on and on and on. But still, in the greater culture, all these things add up to us. Oh, you're welcome, Dan. I swear to God, when I go, I'm gonna go to Los Angeles someday, maybe within a couple of years. And when I do, I want to go visit Carrie Fisher. And okay, hi LMU students. But I'm gonna go visit Carrie and Debbie. I'm gonna go visit John Ford's grave and his wife's grave. I'm gonna go up to the Pacific, to Ocean. I think it's called Pacific View Cemetery, where John Wayne is buried. Say hi to him. Maybe I'll bring a bottle of Duke bourbon with me, and you know, I need to go visit those guys. But you know, again, there's just so much. I mean, that everybody has contributed to America's culture that should not be looked down on or second or put in second place. Um, you know, music, other ethnicities took it up and made it into something bigger than it was. Okay. All right, and of course here's the dog. Kojak, you want to see everybody? Come here, Koji. 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 Come here. Come here. Look up. Say hi. Here he is. The wolf dog. Anyway, so I hope you guys have a good St. Patty's Day. If you drink, don't drink so much you can't drive. Take a cab home. Have some good Irish food, whether it be some sort of fish and chips thing or corned beef and cabbage, which I am gonna put the rest of it in, and just have a lot of fun and celebrate your fellow Americans. And I'm gonna give you a book recommendation. How the Irish Saved Civilization. Good book, well worth the read. I'll see you guys around the galaxy. I think.